Welcome, our listeners and viewers, if you're on YouTube. Welcome back to series two of The Balanced Mind, the podcast where we talk about the psychology of modern accounting. Your hosts for today are myself, Kim Sup, and my colleague Richard Bruin. In this series, we're going to dig even deeper into exploring the behaviours and mindset and challenges shaping the accountancy and bookkeeping profession today because it's under pressure in so many different ways. But what we want to talk about in this particular session, this episode, is looking inwards for solutions, not externally and outside of yourself. And so, Richard, let's just dive straight in. You've got a wonderful quote that you really love, and I think it's a great start to episode one, series two. Would you mind sharing it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a huge one for quotes, but this is one that I've used many, many times over the last 11, 12 years since
Mm.
I've sort of been formally mentoring other accountants. Then this is a quote that I came across very early on. And it just absolutely summed up every conversation I was going to have and every conversation I was having. And something which I think is right at the heart of change.
Mm.
And especially in those conversations with accountants. And I will copy. I'll make sure I do it word for word to do it justice, because otherwise I'm bound to forget something. But it's a quote by Barack Obama. It's quite a famous quote, so many of you may have heard it before. But it just is the power of it for me is amazing. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And I've sent that out in emails. I've talked about it in presentations and sessions and seminars and masterminds and all the rest of it. I've talked on one-to-one with accountants about it because the fundamental point is that if we we focus on accountants and bookkeepers here, so let's do the conversation. But this is as relevant to anybody who is trying to change something.
Yes.
Yeah, if we're going to start change, then we have to start with ourselves. Yeah, the change doesn't come from elsewhere. But I know, talk to so many accountants, bookkeepers who are frustrated by their lack of progress, and especially now because change is happening to all of us all the time, whether we like it or not. There's no stopping it. It's we're in a King Canute situation now, aren't we? With social change, with generational change, with global change, with tech, or AI, you name it. Yeah, we are swamped with change, and we're all trying our best to to not sit there and command it to stop, but instead to try and make sure that we can manage the change in a situation in a way that really works for us and it enables us to get back on track and achieve the goals we want to achieve. And I see accountants frustrated because they're blocked by how much resource they've got, how much time they've got. They're blocked by not necessarily having the right clients, not necessarily having the right team members, by struggling to get the systems implemented that they want to, and all the rest of it. And the point I come back to time and time again is that they're not the problem right now. And hand on heart, the problem is probably you. When I first started doing this, I had a test right at the start for whether I was working with a potential client or not. And it would be to introduce this very early conversation to say, look, because they'd contact me and say, can you help us sort our team out? Can you help us sort our systems out? Can you help us get the right clients? And I go, yeah, absolutely, we can do all of that. But I'm going to have to start with you because the likelihood is that you're the problem. And at that point in time, they either put their hand up and go, yeah, you got me, or they throw me out the room. But either way, we find out very quickly whether we're going to work together or not.
Mm.
And I would stand, many a time I've stood in front of a room full of 50 or 100 accountants and said, look, throw me any problem that your firm has got, and I will show you why it's your fault. And it's a bit of a gimmick, but the point being that until you are crystal clear and performing how you want to be performing and happy with yourself, it's really, really hard to change anything else because it's your firm, you're the leader, you're at the head of it. Everything, like it or not, has to start with you. It doesn't necessarily have to finish with you, but it has to start with you. And that quote just sums all that lot up for me. It's and if people recognize that, they go, actually, yeah, that's fair comment. If
Yeah.
it's we need to stop almost like passing the book, really. We need to stop finding excuses. There's lots of excuses out there. We
Oh
need
gosh,
to
I've
we
picked
need
on a
yeah
few myself, so I get it.
we need to stop looking for them.
Hmm. And I love what you're saying because it fits so much with my model of the world, if you like. Very often, one of the things I say when somebody's talking about their challenges, um, there is that, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. And that fits really well into my thing I was saying earlier, is that it's it all starts with you. You know,
Mm.
what are you feeling, thinking, doing that is contributing to the situation? And so many of us, and I count myself in that, have had our heads in the clouds hoping something will get better. And hope is a wonderful thing, but not if you're not doing anything about it, leading yourself to wherever you need. And as I say, I've been there, seen it, and done it. That's why I talk about it. And so I'm completely with you. People do not consider their own input to a situation because actually, and I don't know how true this is because it's just popped into my head, but everything we experience in life is a two-way street. We do something, we say something, we emit an emotion or a feeling, and something comes back as a result. Now, that might be a person, it might be because you're striving towards something, but it's coming from you to get what it is that you want out of this world. And sometimes you get things you don't want, but actually you need. And I think that's a very big difference. And again, I've been there. What I've wanted hasn't necessarily materialized in the way I wanted it, but I've got exactly what I needed. Hello. So I talk from experience, but also from the experience of talking with others who have been struggling. So I mean, what do you think is the biggest challenge for accountants to start to realize how key they are in this? That who they are is key.
Well, I think that's a great observation itself about it's really important that we recognize who we are. And I think it's really important that we accept who we are. You know,
Oh yeah.
not none of us are perfect. None of us know everything. None of us have foolproof judgment. Yeah, we are all quite capable of getting things wrong, messing things up, making bad decisions, saying things that other people disagree with. Yeah, that's part of being human. It's a massive part of being human.
Mm.
And to some extent, I think it's really important that that from the outset you accept that. You know, as it's hard as an accountant, especially accountant running your own firm, because you are the person that everybody else turns to. You know, clients, team members, colleagues, peers, you know, everyone is looking to us for decisions, for direction, for action and all the rest of it. And we do fall into this trap, I think, of thinking, okay, I've got to be perfect.
Mm.
And I know I'm not perfect, so I'm going to shy away from all the things where I know I'm not perfect. And the problem with that is that the moment you start really being that aware of your weaknesses, it can undermine your strengths. You know, there's this whole issue of lack of confidence in the profession, lack of confidence for accountants and bookkeepers, imposter syndrome, and all of that sort of stuff. It's a massive, massive issue. And it's very real for every single person who is impacted by it. And I think we'll get impacted from time to time.
Oh,
One of
absolutely.
it's one of the things about being a mentor, a coach, I think, is that we have to be black and white. I think, we all live in a very, very grey world, a world where clarity is a real issue. Knowing exactly what to do and what the outcome is going to be is pretty much impossible, but it's a real issue. And so, as accountants, when you've got so many different challenges going on and so many things occupying your headspace, it's very, very hard to make the decisions that you need to make. And I think as a coach and a mentor, we have to sort of almost refuse to go into that and go, look, I get it. I understand the challenges that you face. I understand the pressure and the stress that you're under, but here's a decision that's got to be made. And I think it's a key role to help to, people talk about accountability, but this is almost the other end, the start of it. This is about, look, this has got to happen,
Yeah.
and you're the person who's got to do it. So let's have that conversation. Let's stop going, oh, well, I can't do it because of this and because of that, and I'm waiting for this to happen. And I'm waiting for that person to do this. No, 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 no. Let's, follow Barack Obama. If this is going to change, you're the person who's going to change it. And it. I always talk about trying to find the easy way into things, about walking in from the shallow end and all the rest of it. But actually, there are occasions where you just need to dive in off the deep end,
Mm.
because it's just got to be done.
Yes.
And I think when you're looking at a lot of these issues that we shy away from, these big decisions, you know, sometimes you've just got to go, okay, right, well, I just need to do this. Yeah. Now you can prepare yourself as best as possible and do what you need to do, but ultimately it's like nobody else is going to jump in. It needs to be me who jumps in, and then everybody else will follow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? It's as you said, that fear came to mind. Because making the decision, the reason for not making the decision, I believe, and I'm happy for anybody to, counter this one, is fear. The fear of getting it wrong, the fear of it, not going the way you expected, the fear of, the outcome, you can't predict it. Although, at the end of the day, making a decision may be the wrong one, but boy, can you eliminate it quickly. This whole edict that we had in the project and program community when I was in there. I mean, I've been out of it for a while, but I'm sure it's this whole fail fast mentality. If it's wrong, change it. What's happened for you at that point? Have you lost face? Maybe, but as long as you hold your head up and say, we've moved forward and we've learned something that we can now apply to another decision, because the old decision may still not be right, but a variant of the where you are might be right. So I think the decision making process is something that a lot of people struggle with. And let's be honest, Frank, even. I don't think we teach people how to think. We expect them to know
Yeah.
how to think. And if they can't think for themselves, and I don't get me wrong, that may be no, I'm going to say if they can't think for themselves in a way that works for them, or in a way that can be you know, applied to a situation, they're never going to make the right decision. They're going to make a decision, but is it the right one for where they want to go? Because I just don't think we teach our children in schools how to think. There's an expectation somehow that
Yeah.
and correct me if I'm wrong, and certainly I know with accountants and bookkeepers you go through some very stringent training, but you're being trained to think in one way, aren't you? You're being taught to think in the way of how to do accountancy, but not necessarily business. And I think we've had that conversation before. An accountant's decision may not be a good business decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think, it goes way beyond schooling. You look at the professional exams that so many of us sweat through as well. And it's about, we taught from a very early age how to learn, and the importance of exams and the importance of qualifications. Life's not about that. You know,
Mm.
we're not taught how to deal with failure. When we're not taught, in the exam world, failure is it. That's it. You've failed. There's no,
Yeah.
we're not taught how to deal with failure. We're not taught how to make a decision. We're not taught really how to properly plan, properly prepare, how to think things through. Listen, I was listening to, I was reading an article the other day written by Nicky Campbell,
Oh,
who
yes.
does the, I think he calls it the nation's phone in on BBC Five
Yeah.
Live. And he's done it for a long, long time. He's done lots of chat shows and all the rest of it. And he was saying what really worries him these days is certainty. Everybody is
Mm.
absolutely certain. There's no discussion is becoming a thing of the past. There's no discussion now. It's I'm right, you're wrong, and there's no discussion on that. That's the end of it. And that's because where is the skill gone? You see it with politicians. You see it in the House of Commons when you watch. There's no. Where do we have the conversations to come out with better outcomes? We don't. Everything's confrontational. Everything is either you're either with me or you're against me. And I think
Mm,
that how we're educated has a lot to do with that. And,
mm,
and we're going down that route. And that's a massive challenge. It adds to this, when you're running your own firm, there's this sense that, okay, I've got to be the person who is always right.
yes.
It's weakness if I'm not. Now, I think the better leaders recognize there's real value in listening to your team and listening to your clients and doing that. But there's still this, when we get down to the fundamentals of the business, there's still this thing about I'm going to make a decision and it's got to be right. Now, my view has always been the same. I'm going to make a decision and it's going to be the best decision that I can make in my mind,
Mm,
and I hope it's right. If it's wrong, what's my plan B? What's my plan C?
mm,
Or, how do we measure whether it's right? Just because it's right for me, does, I'm assuming this will be right for my team. I'm assuming it will be right for my clients. That's the wrong assumption. I need to understand. So we've got to get used to looking at almost coming out of our shell, embracing the world around us and going, do you know what? It's okay for this world to go, well, actually, you were a bit stupid there, weren't you? That was a stupid decision.
mm.
Now, if I'm the boss, I prefer someone not to tell me it was a stupid decision, but I'm happy for someone to come and say, okay, can we revisit this because it's not panned out
Yeah.
how you said it would, so to speak. We just need to be, we almost need to relax more. We do need to be prepared to get things wrong. We do need to be prepared to
Mm.
say something stupid. Yeah, heaven forbid, I do that all the time. We
Oh
do,
gosh, me too. I mean, yeah, long story short, I've been there, as I say, so I get it. What I liked about what you've just said there as well is this idea of, the willingness to fail. And I feel that needs to be a podcast in its own right. So maybe we need to have a think about that one. But, re not seeing it as failure, but as learning. We've learned something. It may not have brought what we wanted. It may not have got us where we were going. We could have ended up in a completely different direction, but we've learned something. And now it's time to say, okay, well, where was I heading? And is it still right for me? Bearing in mind where you are, and what are you going to do about it? And I think this is so important to bring it back to it all starts with you. People are making decisions and they don't always understand where those decisions are coming from. They think that they think, but what they don't realize is how much they're being influenced by their past experiences, by the people around them, by the situation, by the environment that they're in. And accountants and bookkeepers, particularly, have a very strong environment to adhere to for a variety of reasons. And I think unless they understand how that's impacting them and their decision, they are going to be exposed, I would say, to making the wrong decision. Let me explain a little bit more, if that's okay. So, you talked about lack of confidence earlier. Now, they're not going to tell people they've got a lack of confidence. Who would? The only time I hear it is when people talk about their driving skills or, their ability to, lose weight or whatever. But the big stuff, we don't tend to talk about it. But the confidence can undermine what you're doing by second guessing your decision. So you've come to a decision, but then you start second guessing it. What happens? You procrastinate, you delay, you seek other people's advice, who then may say something that takes you away from your original decision, and you go somewhere else and you do something else. And I think I've experienced that a lot in my own business. I have listened to too many people and not myself. And I would say over the last 12 months, I've started to actually hold on a moment. What do I want? How is this going to work? And so it's common. So it's not just accountants and bookkeepers. This is people. This is not even just professionals. This is people who do not realize how much they are being undermined by their inner systems and processes. Do you remember when we talked about that very early on? The inner systems and processes where the body is doing whatever it can to keep you safe. Because up until the age of 8, that's its primary objective. Afterwards, it's to keep us connected, included, part of something. And if you think of those two objectives and your decision making, they could be skewed because something about what's happened to you will be impacting where you are now.
Yeah, I think there's, when you look back, go way back in history, then I just think that we were, when we lived off the land, we were taught skills. It was a necessity of life. It was an essential. We were taught to farm, taught to hunt, taught to make fire, whatever it may have, how far back you want to go. But that was the thing. Yeah, before, yeah, education was a real thing. It served a very, very real purpose. And we seem to have moved away from that. So we're no longer, we were taught the skills that we needed for life. But go back even to 200 years ago. Yeah, we were taught the skills that we needed for life. We're not now. You and yes, of course, we're taught the basics of life in terms of language and maths and what have you. But are we really taught how to cope with life? And if you look at um, the issues we have around mental health these days and around stress and around anxiety, how much of that comes from the fact that we've just not been taught how to cope with the lives that we now all live? Yeah, we seem to be trying to, it's like all this discussion at the moment around social media and the big tech companies and all the rest of it and who should be doing what and all the rest of it. Where's the conversations around how, as a child, how as a young person, you self-manage this? You make, if you look at AI and all of the fake stuff that comes around AI now, oh yeah, the conversation is around, do we ban it or do we legislate against it? But where's the conversations around, this is how you recognize it? Yeah, when you see something on social media, this is how you sense check it. This is how you use your own skills to make up your own mind, make your own decision. People have this thing, don't they, about what would you have, where you are today, what would you have told your younger self, what would you have told your 16-year-old self, wherever. And the thing always comes back to me is, I would just, I wish I'd been told way back then to just back myself, yeah, to go, well, look, I, I don't think often enough we were told when we were growing up, what do you think?
Oh no, you were seen and
Yeah.
not heard as a
Yeah,
child.
I mean, yeah, my dad was great at it. My dad would always do it, and sadly passed away these days. But me and my dad have argued politics all of our lives, and argued it in a very constructive way because he always wanted to. He always pushed it back. What do you think? What's your view on this? What have you? And so it's no accident that I'm comfortable having those sorts of conversations. Yeah,
Exactly.
but when you look at school, when you first start your training, when you look into come into business, very very few people go, what do you think? What would you do? Yeah. And you touched on a point there. Actually, I do see it happen today, but it's happening for the wrong reasons. It's happening because the person's pushing it back. Yeah. So someone's got a problem with a job, and the leader of the firm is thinking, I should know all the answers to this. I should be so therefore just going to go, well, why don't you go away and find the answer for yourself? Well, yeah. Now, if that's done in a structured way, in a positive way, that's a great way for people to learn. But if it's being done because you're just trying to avoid an issue, avoid a decision, yeah, then it undermines both paths, doesn't it, really? And I think it's back to this. We've got to look at ourselves more and go, am I am I putting out there the best version of myself?
Mm.
Am I being really honest? Yeah, because I mean, I think one of the advantages I've always had is that I've never thought I was a very good accountant, and that's not me trying to. That's not certainly not false modesty. Anyone who's worked with me will tell you that. And but it neither is it a lack of confidence from that point of view, because I am a confident person in that respect. But I struggled. I never meant to be an accountant, and I came into the profession, and I struggled being an accountant. I love being in an office. I love working with clients. I love working with our colleagues. But I found the technical side of the job a real challenge. Just, debits and credits for months were just a real mystery to me. Yeah. And I think that trying to, I knew to do the things that I wanted to do, which was work with people, I needed to be a competent accountant. So I aimed at being competent. Everyone who's worked at me would hopefully say I'm confident, I'm competent. Very few would say, yeah, talk to Richard, he's an expert in that field, because I hasn't. But I could serve clients because most clients just need competent.
They do.
But also because I recognized that I wasn't an expert, I was quite happy to go to a colleague, to go to a peer, to go to someone in the network and say, can I have your help on this? Because you're really good at this and I'm not so good at it. And say to a client, look, don't ask me that question. Go and ask my manager because they know more about it than me. I don't care if someone looks at me and goes, well, actually, I'd have thought as a partner, you would know that. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
But I don't know that many people would think that. I mean, yes, I'm sure there are some, but they're in a minority. They just want the right answer.
Well, you know how it is when you go on an accounting course, and there'll be people across this call smiling at this. You go on an accountant course, and there's 100 people in the room, and the person at the front, the speaker, asks a question, and nobody puts their hand up. Yeah, the quiz say, does anybody else have this problem? And nobody puts their hand up. And then one brave soul in the middle of the room will sort of half put their hand up and they go, right, okay, anybody else? And by the time he's pushed it, it's like 75% of the room are all going, yeah, yeah, that's me, you've got me. Yeah. We don't want to show ourselves up in front of our peers.
Mm.
In fact, despite the fact that we've all been on hundreds of courses and we all know how it works, and we all know that everybody else in the room is trying to hide away and is as nervous as we are. And
Yes.
yet we still will not admit I don't know that. Or we don't go, actually, I think I do know that, but I'm not going to say just in case I get it wrong and look stupid.
Yeah, and isn't that a leftover of school time as well? I mean, I
Mm.
know very often I put my hand up and got knocked down. I know I can think of two events immediately. And so it starts really young. And this is where our past experiences, not necessarily just school, will impact our today and why starting to understand what's going on under the hood will help us become better. So I do, you're right. I can't tell you how many webinars I've run for accountants and bookkeepers. It's like tumbleweed sometimes
Yeah.
because they just don't want to put it out there what they're really thinking. But they'll come to me afterwards. They'll tell me afterwards, which is
Yeah.
lovely.
You always
But
see that cue for the speaker at the end.
so I do hear it, yeah. And it's amazing. And I don't know, maybe it's right because it's almost primal in its behavior, isn't it? Don't put your head above the parapet because you're the one that's going to get shot. So there is something primal in it. And I sort of understand it, but we live in a modern world and we don't have all the answers. And once we understand what's driving us, we can start to clear some of that up, I think, by, understanding where we can make changes that will really help us. So that if we go into an environment where we don't know the answer, we've thought it through as to how we'll handle it. Because that's all it comes to. If it doesn't work out, what's your plan B? You've said it. What if I say something and it's wrong? What are you going to do? Oh, sorry. Quick, let's move on.
Yeah.
Sorry, what do you think? Bam, you've moved it on straight away. uh,
People seem to think it's a question of confidence, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a matter of honesty. Like, yeah, exactly as you just did there. I would stand up in a room full of accountants, and I'm down to give them a lecture and whatever, and I'll go, look, I'm telling you now, I'm not, I am nowhere near the best accountant in this room. I'm not even the best accountant in my own household, let alone in a room full of X number of accountants. Yeah, so let's get that out there right now. You know, I don't have a problem with that because I know what I am good at. And I know my limitations. And so I say, look, if you've got any technical questions, don't ask me. Especially now, I'm out of date. But if you want the help with this and this and this, I'm your guy. We can have those conversations. I
yeah.
think if we are honest with ourselves, first and foremost, we can be more honest with other people, and that's all we need to be. So if we're honest with ourselves, we know what we don't know. We know when we need to make a decision. You know, we are we believe that what we're doing is right. 99.9% of the people I've met in business are nice people, caring people, honest people, people who want to do right for everyone. So there's no there's no catch in this. You know, when you do what you think is right, you're doing that for all the right reasons. And that's, as a human, that is all we can do.
Yeah,
And if we think that we should be capable of doing more, if someone's asked me a question, I'm thinking I should know the answer to that, then it's up to me to go and say, give me 10 minutes, I'll go and I'll just double check the answer. You know, or not to try and lie or to kid or anything like that. Honestly says, yeah, leave it with me. I think I know the answer, but I need to double check on that.
yeah,
Or I do know the answer. This is the answer. Or no, I don't know the answer to that. This is what we can do. We'll talk to that person or what have you. It just people. I spoke to a guy 3 days ago. 2 weeks ago, he was supposed to come in to fix my fence. The fence was blowing in the wind. He was going to come and fix it. He looked at it, said, "Yeah, no problem. Get it done. We'll get it done within a fortnight." So I said, "Fine." 2 weeks later, he's not phoned me. So I phoned the guy up in the van and said, "Hi, it's me. Do you remember me?" He went, He says, if I'm being honest, I completely forgot about you." And I went, "I'm absolutely fine with that because I've assumed that's what happened. I get it. If he'd said, oh, if he'd given me a load of bullshit, then it would have reflected badly on him. It would, I maybe would have looked for somebody else." But the guy went, "Yeah, sorry, I forgot." We all do it. We
we
all do
do.
it. He was
We
rushing
do.
back to his van. I totally get it. So it's not, I liked the honesty. It worked in his favor. If he forgets to come tomorrow morning, I'll be less than happy about that.
Do tell.
But it's just if being honest is really simple. In most cases, being honest is very simple. Yeah. Sometimes these difficult decisions, these big decisions are about, okay, being honest on this occasion is hard,
Mm,
but still need to do it. You just need to do it, in a way that again, you think is the best way of doing it. But if we're just honest with ourselves and honest with everybody else, life gets so much easier because, as you said earlier, no one's expecting perfection from us.
no, exactly. Well, I think we've coming to the end of today's episode, and what a great start! I think there's at least several topics in there we could extrapolate and look at going forward, because we were looking at the fact that this idea of that, we need to start with ourselves, the self-awareness that needs to come, and I think if some let me get my words in, summarized it up really well with this idea of being honest with ourselves. We don't admit to ourselves when things are not working internally and take action on it. And I think if we could start to do that, not only could we unlearn those old learnings of things that are not working for us, but we can show up with more presence, more impact, and actually, in light of what you said, more confidence. Mm. Any last parting comments at all, Richard, before we close this one down?
Um, I mean, we are who we are, aren't we? We can always and should always strive to be the best version of ourselves and to be better. We should always try and be better, but we are who we are, and yeah, and that's all we can be.
Yeah, perfect. That could be just the title of the podcast. Thank you so much. We'll speak again soon. Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Bye.